Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk. Today, the 26th day of the month of Adar, 5775. It's also March 17th, 2015. This week, we begin the third of the 5 books of Moshe. We begin the book of Leviticus, the book of Vayikra. This Shabbat is also a special Shabbat. It is Parshat HaChodesh. It is the special Shabbat that precedes the month of Nisan. Actually, this Shabbat is the first day, Rosh Chodesh, of the month of Nisan. So there's a confluence here of a lot of things going on at once. We feel the ingress of the new month coming in. A special month of Nisan. It's actually called by the Torah in Exodus 12, the first of all the months. And that's what Parshat HaChodesh, this special Shabbat, is all about in preparation for the month of redemption. And we also begin the book of Vayikra, which is a whole new thing, a whole new dimension of meaning to life. And interestingly, today here in Israel, another new kind of thing going on, another confluence. And that is today's election day. For the 20th.
Not much to know about that. Happens every couple of months here, it seems.
Seems like it, but it isn't actually. Today is elections for the 20th Knesset in Israel's history. It seems to be a very close campaign. It seems to be too close to call. It seems to be too complex to understand. And so, ironically, once again, here we are at the mics recording Temple Talk as of this hour that we are recording our program in advance. I believe 36% of the population has already cast their ballots. We don't know yet what's going on. It's a bit premature. But the fact is, there is something going on. And where will it lead us? That's really the question. It's after living through this whole campaign season, which is always so difficult because there's just a lot of, mudslinging and all sorts of, I believe, unseemly kind of behavior associated with these elections. Here we are coming down to the wire, and people are out there voting. And Yitzchak, you might wonder, and well, you might. Does this have anything whatsoever to do with the other themes that we mentioned in our introductory remarks today? Does the elections for Israel's 20th Knesset, for example, I might ask you, have anything to do with Sefer Vayikra, with the beginning of the book of Leviticus that is now being read all over the world by the Jewish people and by those who love the Torah? Does the elections in Israel have anything to do with Parshat HaChodesh, which is the harbinger of the month of Nisan, which is upon us this Shabbat? Is this coincidence? Is there any coincidence? Do all these things actually mean something? What do you think about that question, my friend?
Well, my friend, I will start with the last and then proceed to the first. The last question, is there coincidence? There's no coincidence. No coincidence in this world. Everything is there for a reason. Second question, what's it got to do with this coming Shabbat, which is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the first of the months? Of course, we know it's the first of the months. We just read about that in the book of Exodus.
Exodus 12.
Which
12,
is going to be read again as the special
Egypt,
God said, this is the
reading.
first of the months. You will reckon your months from this.
Special maftir for this coming Shabbat is, once again, the first chapter of the beginning of Exodus 12.
And
then the other part of the question was...
No, I haven't finished that question. Answer yet, Rabbi, please. It is Nisan is the new year for the festivals of Israel and for the kings of Israel, meaning that the kings of Israel would mark their reign beginning in the month of Nisan. So I don't think we're in the process of electing a king, but we are electing a prime minister.
Leadership.
And it's still a bit of a, coincidence there. Oh, there's no coincidence. And back to the first question, which is really the, I think, biggest question, which is what does the election day events here in Israel have to do with the beginning of the book of Vayikra, Leviticus? And I think that each and every one of us in election day are called upon to step up to the plate and make a choice for ourselves what what we believe this modern state of Israel is all about or should be about, and hopefully find a candidate or party, it's not so simple, that will reflect what we believe is the direction that we feel that the state and the nation of Israel should go in. And in the book of Vayikra, I think that it's a book of the individual stepping up to the plate and approaching God in the tabernacle, in the holy temple, and really making a decision and a choice of who we're going to be, because this is our opportunity in the temple service to be that human being that God created long ago.
Exactly. As we endeavored to point out in our weekly lesson on the Parsha and video lesson, more than anything, Vayikra is a very eloquent statement, a very eloquent call to reinstate and elevate the dignity of man. That's what Vayikra is all about, and in a way, I think that's what these elections are supposed to be about. And let's tie it all together in a very wondrous way, since there is no coincidence. As everybody knows, hopefully, we're going to be having our special International Temple Mount Awareness Day broadcast. Actually, it's going to be brought to you next week on the 5th day of the month of Nisan. On the 25th day of March, we're going to have our special ITMAD, International, 6th Annual International Temple Mount Awareness Day broadcast will be available through the Temple Institute's YouTube channel, through our Facebook page.
Website, Facebook.
And this year, you're not going to have to watch according to a particular time zone, because it's all going to be available together at the same time. And as we've discussed in past years, why do we celebrate, as it were, this temple consciousness specifically around the new moon of Nisan? We've explained that there is a tremendous significance to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which again occurs this particular Shabbat, is actually the day of Rosh Chodesh. The month of Nisan is tremendously connected to the restoration of the divine service, to the dedication of the temple, for many reasons. One is because the tabernacle was actually dedicated, began the divine service on the first day of Nisan. That day, our sages state, was a day that has particular spiritual significance, power, and conveys a message of, specifically of God's being so pleased with this world, with creation, with having a place in this world. The expression used by our sages, for example, in the Zohar, is that the world achieved its perfection, its completion was actually perfumed with this fragrance of God's presence on the first of the month of Nisan. And it's all because of the fact that Israel welcomed God into the world through the service of the tabernacle. It's the first day that fire came down from heaven, and the Kohanim began the priestly duties with their priestly garments. And there's 10 things actually that are listed that are called the 10 crowns of the month of Nisan. So there's a very strong bond between this month and the concept of this affecting the tikkun of man and man's purpose in creation in the first place, which is to recognize that there is a God in the world, and that our lives are to rise above what appears to be the confines of our existence, and to sanctify Him and to know Him in every way. Of course, that leads us to the inexorable bond between the month of Nisan and redemption itself. Our sages tell us that just as Israel was redeemed in Nisan, that's when the exodus from Egypt took place, so too in the future, the month of Nisan is sanctified and reserved for the redemption. It's the time of redemption. It's the time of the completion of the universe, because again, it all boils down to this to the cosmic joy that is felt through the presence of the Shekhinah, the divine presence in the tabernacle. So that's what Nisan is all about. That's why we chose. Already, this is the 6th year we chose to host this special broadcast, which, of course, as we've explained to you in the past couple of weeks, is going to have a different format this coming year. It's going to be based on our readers and friends and listeners' participation. People have been sending in their questions already for about 2 weeks now. We've gotten a collection of very intriguing, well-articulated, beautifully phrased, intelligent, exciting questions that we're going to be sharing on ITMAT, as well as, God willing, Yitzchak and I are going to have the privilege and joy of sharing with you for the first time, seeing the beginning of the project of the architectural plans for the sanctuary of the Holy Temple that we also began with the aid of our supporters and friends and those that are dedicated to the Holy Temple. That was back in this past summer with our Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign. We're going to be showing you the beginning of that project now. That is being worked on even as we speak by the architectural firm that has been hired to work on that. So all of this actually dovetails perfectly with the book of Vayikra, because Vayikra also is about everything that goes on in the Holy Temple. It's a reflection of what man could be, of rising above the limitations of our own kind of selfishness and our own kind of self-absorption, and understanding that there's a whole system of the universe which is reflected in the teaching that the service of the Holy Temple is one of the pillars of the universe. That goes on. What goes on there is basically a constant refurbishment and a constant kind of realignment of the spirit of humanity in the Holy Temple. It's the consecration of life. And for those that look at the service of the Holy Temple and the offerings, and they feel that it's an inhumanity or some sort of insensitivity to animals, the truth is, I think there's no place on earth where life is so respected and cherished as much as it is in the Holy Temple. And the whole concept of what goes on there is really an elevation of the life force. What's all this got to do with the drama that's being played out right now in our society in Israel? As all of our nation goes to the polls, and we are caught up in a lot of how do I describe it? How do I describe the
It's a family show, Rabbi.
It's what?
It's a family show.
It's a baughty family show.
No, I'm saying temple talk. You have to be careful.
I'm sorry,
how
right.
you describe the election season.
Yeah, it's difficult because it brings out the extremes in a lot of people. There's a lot at stake.
It brings out the beast, the animal in people.
Oh, that's interesting.
And very interesting.
Very perfect timing for Vayikra. And I'm thinking, Yitzchak, that it's a perfect, it's a perfect kind of nidbach. How do I want to say that in English? It's a perfect superimposition onto the whole Mishkan / Nisan consecration of life theme, because again, what Nisan is really all about is about letting Hashem's presence into the world and uplifting all of life. And hopefully, at least for some of us, the goal of everything that's going on here is exactly that. And you mentioned earlier, as we began, the concept of making choices, and Vayikra also is really about choosing to polish the divine image within each of us and to rise above our more base nature. And also, as we mentioned in our weekly lesson, Vayikra is kind of like the party's over. It's kind of like a separation, because if you're a fan of Torah study in a casual way, you can really get into Breshit and Shmot. It's a lot of fun, but when it comes to Vayikra, there's a big challenge to stay with the program, because it's stark and it calls a person onto the carpet and makes a person really have to confront a lot of things that we might like to just not have to look at and deal with, and that is the conflict within ourselves, that the conflict between our spiritual nature and aspiration and our physicality and our kind of selfish or physical self that is more interested in a different system, a different kind of priority. So here we are now coming to a crossroads in our lives on so many levels, with the month of Nisan, with the beginning of the book of Vayikra, and really all reflected by the fact that we, as a nation, we're making choices, and this is not an endorsement of any particular party or anything like that, for goodness sake. But isn't that really what's at stake? What are we? Who are we? What are we going to be as we grow up, as we take our place in the world, as we attempt to herald the redemption, which is what the state of Israel is all about? Are we going to rise to the occasion and identify with everything that is reflected by the book of Vayikra and the challenge of bringing Hashem's presence into the world, this Shabbat, the month of Nisan, the redemption from Egypt, everything that coming to a tremendous head all together as these themes, and the choices that are being made, what the various parties stand for. Again, not to even to begin to analyze who they are. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Are we going to recognize our destiny in the world?
A rabbi, it's a little irony. I think people with the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, and it's the temple service, and there's a lot of rules and regulations, and it can be very dry. I think people equate that with, sort of a very rigid, aspect of Judaism, of Torah, where there are rules and you have to follow the rules, because if you, make any mistake this way or that way, then the whole service is I don't know, invalid. But what we're really saying, or what the Torah is really saying, is it's about dealing with our own freedom, with our own, free will that we were created with, and basically measuring up to it, and using the temple service, the offerings, is a way of recreating a balance when we go off kilter, and realigning ourselves when our own free will leads us this way or that. There are, in this week's parsha, they talk about a chet bishkaga, right? When someone makes an error inadvertently,
an unintentional sin.
Unintentional sin. And they talk about the individual who may do it, and they talk about the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, who may do it, if I'm not mistaken, and also about the the people. It also speaks about the Nasi, the president, the head of the congregation, of the community. And in that case, it doesn't say if he makes an error, it says when he makes an error, which I think is also appropriate to our season, because the person who has a responsibility of other people, we, the other people, should expect that they are going to make an error. We can't expect our leaders to be flawless and be suddenly shocked, when they mess up, or follow them blindly because, they're perfect human beings. That's just an interesting aside. But getting back to what I was saying, I think that you and I, Rabbi, and I mean you really, have developed over the past number of years with tremendous amount of effort and intention. I don't know if it's a new approach to the book of Vayikra or to the temple service. I really don't think it's a new approach. I think it's returning to what was originally intended, and that is to see it in a different light and to try to see it as best we can from the inside out, which admittedly is very difficult because we don't have the offerings today. We aren't experiencing the service of the temple. So again, it's like trying to describe someone what Shabbat is all about when they've never experienced it. And once a person experiences Shabbat, even at one time, they've been opened up to a whole new world, and I believe that's the same case with the Holy Temple and with the offerings. But we're trying our best to get inside and into that mindset, and to explore the meaning of Vayikra and the service from the inside out. Not an easy task, and of course, something that we want to change very, very radically in our lifetime, which is to renew the temple service, so that we can, as individuals and as a people and as a world, experience once again a whole level of consciousness and closeness to God that we're missing out on. And many people are uncomfortable with it, or they back away from it. It doesn't fit in with our intellectual...
They apologize for it, or they spin it. It's like all sorts of excuses. Well, it used to go like that, but it's not relevant anymore. And they come up with all kinds of ways of kind of explaining it away so that they don't feel so threatened by it, because it is a very big threat to a person's comfort zone.
Yeah, excuse me. It's a threat to the reality as it is today. And that's fine if you accept the reality as it is today as the best possible reality that there can be, or as the reality that God intended.
But if you accept this as the best possible reality, then what do you do with this incredible body of Torah? In other words, and this is a problem that a lot of modern Orthodox so-called people have, and a lot of contemporary Bible critics or scholars have, in all their explaining away of the book of Leviticus. And it's completely the diametric opposition of our approach, which is to say that we're trying to understand what Hashem is telling us in this time now for the rebuilding of the temple. But the attitude that so many people have is like, well, this is just not something that is relevant. We can't deal with it, and therefore it must be just explained away.
Mm-hmm. Needs to be translated into something more modern and fitting to today's reality.
Today's reality is taking a new shape all around us, even as we speak here on Temple Talk. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. Today, the 26th day of the month of Adar, 5775, and it's the 17th of March, 2015. You know, by the way, Rabbi, I haven't mentioned, but as of this past Shabbat, the 23rd of Adar, we are in the 7 days of Miluim, the 7 days of preparation for the establishment.
7 days of inauguration, right, of the tabernacle.
Of the tabernacle.
During each one of these days, Moshe actually built the entire tabernacle and took it apart again. And then finally, on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, that was the final day of the completion of the inauguration.
We're actually in perfect sync with what we're reading in the Torah these weeks, because it was only last Shabbat that in the Vayikra Pekude that the Torah talked about the 7 days of inauguration, and we are actually living those days right now. That's not what I was going to say, though. I had a different thought, and that just popped into my head. Once again, I'm going to start from the beginning. 26th day of Adar, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to recalibrate. The book of Vayikra, another thing that I'd like to add into the mix that we've talked about before, and we'll talk about again because it's so significant. When I mentioned earlier that some people will see the book of Vayikra as being a very rigid, strict book of rules and regulations and measurements and all sorts of details, in the book of Vayikra, the name Elokim is not used. The name Elokim is the name of God, which which always signifies the aspect of God which is of strict judgment, of
Din, harsh judgment,
din,
right.
of harshness, whereas the name that God is referred to exclusively in the book of Vayikra, Yud Kei Vav Kei,
Hashem.
Hashem is the name of really of intimacy and of love and
kindness,
of
chesed,
chesed, of
mercy.
And I mean, what better place to be than in the place of that name?
And some people find that very fact to be very startling and contradictory, because they look at Vayikra as being a slaughterhouse book, as being very savage, as being as looking at God as being some sort of very wrathful deity who is like insatiable for blood, and in order to appease him, then we have to bring him these offerings, and that's what they are looking at, and that's what they think is the reason why we have to build the Holy Temple. And obviously the fact that the Torah, in its infinite wisdom, Hashem himself in his wisdom, every time the offerings are referred to throughout the book of Vayikra, consistently from cover to cover, you don't find the name Elokim, only the name which we refer to as the Lord, Hashem, the name, reverentially, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hashem, which we don't pronounce. And that is a message. The message that's being broadcast is that something about bringing these offerings is an expression of Hashem's tremendous love and mercy for us. And again, those who look at Vayikra as being this, this very, very savage kind of thing, they're looking at it from some sort of pagan mindset. They're looking at it as if Hashem is really waiting around the corner to get us, and that we have to appease him, and we have to have these substitutes, and that's why we bring these offerings, which they call sacrifices, in that mindset, which I very much abhor and completely reject. That because a korban is not a sacrifice; it's an offering based on becoming close, as we mentioned again this week. And I think that one of the things I tried to say very briefly in this week's short Torah portion, and also certainly in the longer thing that we're posting this week, which was based on a teaching delivered in Texas on February 22nd of this past year, it depends where you're coming from when you're looking at this whole thing. You used a very interesting expression in the first half of the program, and by the way, Yitzchak, let me acknowledge to all our listeners that you really don't feel well today, that we've had to stop a couple of times. Your throat is really bothering you. You were out for a couple of days earlier. You're on antibiotic, and I want to wish you a complete and speedy recovery in the name of all of Israel and the whole world, and everybody that loves you. Thank you so much for recording with us today, even though you're not feeling that well.
Wow.
You used an expression. The expression was from the inside out. I don't know exactly what you meant by that, but I think I know what you meant, and I think it's the same thing we were trying to say earlier. From the inside out, meaning, how are you looking at Hashem's commandments to Israel? Not only regarding the commandment of the offerings in the temple, but of everything in the Torah, the Torah's entire emphasis. But a perfect example of this is our relationship, our understanding, our attitude towards the offerings. Are you looking at it that this is Hashem giving us these things because he needs it, because he wants it, because we're doing something for him, because we're affecting some kind of change in him or something like that? Which, by the way, that's all absolutely, totally the antithesis of proper Jewish thought, because God doesn't change and he doesn't need nothing from us whatsoever, and we're not doing him no favors. Or do you look at it from the inside out? I think this is really caught me, that expression that you said, meaning that everything that he commands and everything that he instructs us to do is for our benefit. It's actually just a huge drama that Hashem is allowing us to participate in the hope that somehow through our dense state of being, something will trickle through at one point, and we will snap out of the tremendous state of somnambulism that we're in, and become people. And becoming a person, rising to the potential of a human being for which he was created, is the whole theme of Parshat Vayikra. That's the secret of the expression reach nichoach.
Exactly. Well, you took the words out of my mouth.
A pleasing aroma to Hashem. The pleasing aroma to Hashem that's associated with various offerings, the Torah tells us, is not the smell of burning meat that God likes. It's the sense, the spiritual sense that God senses that this person, because of everything that he's going through in bringing this offering and confronting in a very visceral and inescapable and traumatic kind of way, confronting the dark side of himself and realizing that he has to reflect on those times that he's acted so much, like David says in Psalm 73, like a mindless animal. And now he wants to become a person again. That process is what Hashem senses in the person. So bringing the offering is not about like, oh, God is not going to be appeased until I slaughter an animal in my stead and he sees the blood. That's not it at all. It's, I have to see this. I have to understand what I've become and what I can be and where I've slipped up, and how precious life is, and how precious human life is, and the difference between a person and an animal. Because, and again, I know this isn't politically correct in our world, but you know what? They are not the same. They are simply not the same. People and animals are not the same. We have a lot in common, and that's the whole problem. When you look around in the world, that's exactly what the problem is, because we have a lot in common with them, and we allow the godly soul, the divine image of man, unfortunately, to take a back seat, to plunge into a certain murky kind of abyss. And the service in the temple is a call, like Vayikra, the first verse. It's a call to us to elevate and to get out of that. And the amazing thing about it, this is the deepest concept in the world. I'm telling you that first of all, the whole basic thing that we're talking about, that all of the mitzvot, all of the Torah is designed to affect us. And Hashem throwing us a line, literally throwing us a rope to try and pull ourselves out of the lethargy, right? But besides that, imagine, just think for yourself for a moment, that this process that we're describing, which is like the expression that I'd like to use, a psychodrama, that a person goes through in the Holy Temple, which is so pleasing to Hashem, it's called the divine service, and it's the definition of how to serve Hashem in this world. Why? By genuflecting and slaughtering an animal, cutting its throat, and putting blood on the altar. That's not what makes him happy. What makes him happy is the symbolism, the understanding that it's going to have the effect on us. In other words, every detail of bringing the innards and everything that has to do with every single one of these offerings is the deepest Torah in the world, which a person has to study and learn and understand what the significance is of what it means, because the profound effect that it has on a person's psyche is what makes all the difference in the world to this person growing from the experience and literally using that opportunity, lehitkarev, which is the root of the word of korban, to become closer to Hashem. How to become closer to Hashem? By understanding that we are not animals and that we have a tremendously profound purpose in the universe. That's the whole thing on a nutshell of what the Holy Temple is supposed to be imparting to us in the first place. And how beautiful that this all confluences with Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is because this is the purpose of creation altogether, is for creation to shine forth that Hashem is in the world. And if I may say so, that in a way it might sound a bit, funny. I mean, the elections in Israel, in its way, I hope this is what it will bring. This is what every person who believes in Hashem and has fear of Hashem and loves the Torah and loves the land of Israel and the people of Israel wants. We want the spiritual revolution of becoming the people that we should be, and to stop fooling around and to bring about the redemption. It's all one theme.
And it's all contained in that secret of the initial diminished aleph of the word Vayikra. And he called, and in the Hebrew text, Vayikra ends in the letter aleph, and in the Sefer Torah, that aleph is written small. And it symbolizes and represents so many things. It represents the diminishment of our own ani, our own self. We have to make room for God in this world. And in the tabernacle, the mikdash, which is the perfect meeting place in this world, we have to make room for God by diminishing ourselves. And you know what? The aleph of Vayikra is also God. he diminishes himself as well to make, how can God impose his entirety on us so we can't possibly receive that?
He's
God,
called the Alufo Shel Olam, like the leader of the world.
and we both have to meet. And this is it, the whole rendezvous in the history of man, the leaving Egypt and building the tabernacle and all the detail of that. Why was God so interested in the detail, and why was God so pleased and wanted everybody to meet Nadev, to give of their own hearts and raise themselves up? Because this is the moment God's been waiting for, this moment of meeting between God and man, which is contained in the Aleph of Vayikra, which is so intimate and so important. It's also the Aleph of Adam Arishon, man, as God created us, as God intended us. It's the Aleph of Ayeka, where are you, when God said to Adam, after he ate from the fruit of the tree and he hid from God, he said, where are you? Well, you know what? This is the moment where man comes out of hiding and man says, I'm here. And this is what enables the magic, if I can call it that, the miracle of the temple service to fulfill itself, because man finally, after all these years, after all these generations, is willing to be a partner and willing to bring God into the world and willing to live a life in which he can live that life in the presence of God and not be ashamed and not hide from God. That really is what God has been after all this time, and that's what the reach nichoach, that's what the pleasing aroma is all about. Because, wow, man has actually at last decided to take on what he was endowed with from the beginning, which is holiness, which is the ability to live in this world and be in this world with God.
So it really is a tremendous challenge, and I got to tell you, this book of Vayikra is a thorn in the side of a lot of Jewish people because it's just extremely, extremely inconvenient. And,
you know what?
and
It's
yet,
extremely intimate, and I think intimacy
and listen.
may challenge people.
They don't want to, God forbid, they don't want to say they don't believe in the Torah. They don't want
Right.
to say they don't believe that the Torah is eternal, or they don't want to say that anything has ever changed, because they don't believe that at all. They really believe that the Torah is for all time, and that Hashem is forever, and that the mitzvot were given once, and Mount Sinai, and all that stuff. They really believe in it. But they have a very, very big problem with Vayikra, because it doesn't fit in with anything at all of our world right now. Absolutely not. And here, though, we're just scratching the surface now. We're just intimating the tip of the iceberg. The most profound lessons in existence are contained in this book. Lessons about the vast grandeur of human potential, as opposed to the dismal pit of the opposite that a person can fall into. And the thing is, people have this very extreme reaction about Vayikra, because it's really, really challenging to the personal comfort zone, and it's amazing. It's amazing. People come up with a lot of excuses and they really find themselves painted into a theological corner to have to explain away these things, because it's just such a threat to them. So, in a way, gosh, the whole election thing is the same thing. A lot of that is going on, where you have these people saying, "Oh, we're not like those kind of people.
Right.
We're not primitives. We're not, we're enlightened. We don't venerate the tombs of the righteous. We don't kiss the mezuzahs. We don't do all these things. Strike God from the lexicon. We're emancipated, enlightened Western society." And you know what? It's the same divide. It really is the same divide. It's about the whole thing of the whole, conundrum here of Jewish survival and existence, and again, as opposed to Jewish flourishing and the fulfillment of destiny. It's all about, how do we view ourselves? How do we take this?
Are we animals, or are we people?
Oh, I didn't want to be that. Yeah.
Well,
basically,
are we tending toward the lower aspect of our being, or toward the higher aspect? It's the Vayikra challenge. Remember the bucket challenge?
Right.
A bucket of cold water, ice water on your head.
As a matter of fact, I remember
this
that.
is a bucket of God's presence on your head.
I was afraid you were going to say a bucket of the blood of a korban.
Oh, God forbid.
Phew.
This is a bucket of reality being, poured on us. Are you up for it? Can you stand up to it? Can you be part of it? Can you embrace it?
And if people could put aside a lot of their preconceived notions and prejudices about Vayikra and get into it and open up their hearts and shine a little bit of humility, and say, well, I don't know everything in the world, actually, but Hashem does, and it hasn't changed, so let's see what this is really all about. All of a sudden they could find the greatest treasure of this legacy of what Hashem really expects from a person, this beauty of human potential. It's right there in the temple service. And again, we always try to emphasize why we're so dedicated to the principle of the rebuilding of the temple, why it's our life's work. It's not about a building, and it's not about any kind of cult of sacrifices or all the things that people say. This is what it's all about. It's about living for Hashem. It's about this vision of a united, unified humanity, which is just treasuring Hashem's presence in the world and realizing the tremendous beauty and promise of every life, of every moment of life. That's really what the Vayikra challenge is all about, as well as the whole theme of Nisan. So Yitzchak, we have a few minutes to remind everybody that next week, on Wednesday, the 25th of March, the 5th day of Nisan, we will be making available the 6th annual Temple Mount Awareness Day broadcast. And it will not be similar to previous years in that we're not going to have any special guest segments. Instead, we're going to be examining up close, intimately, and I hope articulately some very important questions that have been posed to us about progress that's being made in various Temple Institute projects, the situation on the Temple Mount, a lot of very specific issues that we're going to cover in honor of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, in honor of the rebuilding of the Holy Temple, in honor of the dedication of the Tabernacle and the beginning of the Divine Service. We're also going to be, God willing, showing some of the initial preliminary accomplishments of the architect that is beginning the plans for the actual building of the Heichal of the Holy Temple. So it promises to be a very, very exciting and important event.
It's been very gratifying, Rabbi, the questions we've received, because they are, as you pointed out earlier, very articulate, very erudite, very serious, which is gratifying to us because it's just good to get these, to hear that people are so tuned into and in touch with the concept of the Mikdash. And some of them are based on interesting ideas and what we might consider to be misconceptions, which we'll hope to clear up. But we expect that it's going to be very interesting, even entertaining, for people to hear these questions being asked and explained and answered. And hopefully by the end of the International Temple Mount Awareness Day event, people will be much more, what's the word, educated or enlightened or informed about what we're talking about, what we're after, where we are in the world and history, and where we are in time in terms of the Holy Temple, and getting to that point where we're rebuilding it and renewing the divine service. So we are really looking forward to sharing all that with everybody. Again, it's next Wednesday, and as you pointed out earlier, Rabbi, there's no particular launch time because the presentation can be found on YouTube and on our Facebook page and on the Temple Institute's website, templeinstitute.org. And people also will be able to participate via our Facebook page to ask for more clarification if they need it, or other questions or other insights. So we're looking forward to a very, very intense and fruitful day of questions and answers and interaction between us and you out there. Once again, this coming Shabbat is Rosh Chodesh, Nisan, the first day of the month of Nisan, and all that means, as we've explained. And it's also Parshat HaChodesh, which is as the Rabbi explained, it's the Parsha in which God gave over to Israel the authority and responsibility to declare the new moon in each of the new moons of the 12 months of the year, and to determine time according to that, and the festivals according to that. So these are big days coming up. The month of Nisan is upon us, the time of the Gula, of the redemption. So stick with us, be prepared. Thanks for being with us today. Temple Talk.